In this video, I'll demonstrate how to use Google's data store to save and retrieve data using our JEE Spring Boot application that I had shared with you folks earlier. So what I plan to do is I want to save users' data. So a user who comes to my JEE application, I want to store the details of that user. And in this very simple case, I'm just storing the first name and the last name. And of course, I also want an ID to be generated for every user. So that's also stored in the data store. Now, before we get started on the Java side, we have to, first of all, create a data store. So I'm in my MBCC test project. So to this project, I want to create the data store. So I click on this data store tab on the left. So that takes me to this page. Here I click on this create Firestore database and leave this alone, standard edition. But here, when we come here, we want to be choosing the second one, Firestore with data store compatibility, because this is the one which allows us to use Java to store and retrieve data in the data store. But if you choose the other one, then you can't use Java. So we want to be choosing this. And you can leave this multi-region, or if you want to save money, then you can switch it over to region. I mean, in my case, I'm just showing this as a demonstration, so I really don't want a multi-region. So I'll choose region and then create the database. Yeah, so it's asking me which region, so I'll pick up US Central, Iowa, and then hit the create database. So this will create the database for me now. And once it is created, I should be able to use my Java application to store and retrieve data in that data store. Now let's get started. So I have this bare bones user.java file, as I already mentioned. So I just have an ID to hold the ID of the user and the first name and the last name of the user. And all I have is getters and setters for those instance variables in this Java class. And then, since this is an entity that is going to be stored in the data store, I have to put this entity annotation, and the name is going to be user, so it automatically picked up that for me, and I'm going to leave that alone because that's pretty much what I want to do. That's pretty much it as far as the Java class itself is concerned. But as you can see, it is all broken because I don't have the necessary imports in my pom.xml. So I'm going to take the help of Gemini to get this done. So for that, I'm opening another terminal window here. And in that terminal window, I'll first move on to my Spring Gemini example folder and then start Gemini. So I started. Now it's like asking me to provide my question so that it can start fixing. So I'm going to ask it to fix the user.java. Please fix the pom.xml such that the user.java file will compile. So I'm really not giving a whole lot of prompts here. It should understand based on what is broken, and those necessary imports are not available. So it will open up, it will basically insert the pom.xml with the necessary dependencies so that this compiles. So you can see it is looking into the files, and it figured out that it needs the cloud data store dependency, and it landed up adding that as well. So it's giving me its plan. So these are the changes that it is doing. Spring Cloud GCP Starter Data Store. So it's planning to add that. And also this Spring Cloud GCP dependencies 4.8.2 and I'm going to simply accept it. So it's asking me to confirm those changes. I'll go ahead and ask it to fix it. So it's also modifying, it's running the Maven to actually see if it runs or not. It figured out that the compilation failed, cannot find symbol. What did it fail with? Let's see. So it's adding one more annotation. One more dependency for annotation. So yeah, it all that it figured out itself. So I really didn't have to do a whole lot. It ran the Maven, and it understood the compilation issues, and it's asking me to confirm so that it can go ahead and add the necessary imports, and I'll simply accept whatever it's asking me to. And of course, I'm looking over it, so I'm kind of fine with it, whatever it is trying to do. So I'll accept it. And now it finished, and as you can see, now all the compilation is no longer broken. So it's doing fine. So my user is no longer having any of those red marks, so it is all compiled good. So of course it doesn't stop there. Let me just go ahead and once it finishes, let me start my server and see everything is still working fine. And after that, we will ask it to also create a form so that the user's name and first name and last name can be entered into that form. And if you hit submit, it should invoke the backend, and then it should eventually store that value in the data store. So I want to do all those things as well, but I'm going one step at a time. So I just want to get my entity ready. So my entity is ready right now. But I also need a repository, so that I can use that repository to store the user and retrieve the user. So that's the next step. But I'm going to ask it to do all those things with one prompt only. So let's go ahead and get that prompt. So first of all, I need an endpoint. So create a HTTP post endpoint. Endpoint that accepts user's first name and last name, and insert the user's details into the data store. Let's see if of course my prompt is, in fact, as you can see, it is not fully formed in the right way, but it is pretty good in understanding, even if it is not properly done as well. So let's see what it understood first of all. So I'll build a post endpoint to add a user to the data store. First I'll create, this is exactly what I wanted. So first I'll create a user repository interface. Then I'll modify the AI controller Java to accept the user object via a new endpoint and inject the backend service.java and add a save method to it that utilizes the repository. That all looks good. So let me just go ahead and hit enter so that it goes about doing it. So here is where all the different things that it is inserting. So it all looks good to me. Make this a little bit bigger so we can see more of the output from the Gemini. And by the way, this is Gemini 3.0 that I'm using. So adding setters and getters for the first name and the last name to user.java. Although I did have it, so I'm not quite sure what it is trying to do here. Set first name. Didn't I have that already? Oh yeah, I didn't have that. So okay, fine. We only had getter. So it figured out that I don't have setter method, so it's doing that. That's fine. That was needed. in fact missed it previously, right? And then what is it saying? So it wants to compile now and see everything is looking good. So I'll ask it to go ahead and come in. There are no tests. I should have said don't run tests. There are no tests in this one. So it got me the endpoint. So let's take a look at the backend service. So backend service is the service. And not much is happening here except that user repository is now being passed on to this backend service constructor. So that's all it landed up doing here. And in the demo application itself, there is not much change. And then the controller. So AI controller is where the endpoint should have been. So this is the REST controller. So previously we had this AI generate. Now we have one more post mapping, which is AI user. So where it accepts a user object and I save that user into the data store using this backend service. And again, as we see in the backend service, so all it has is save user method, the new user that it landed up create a new method that it created. So that is going to use this user repository. So if you take a look at what exactly is there in the user repository, let's actually see, it should have been here. Yeah, here it is. So as you can see, this is just an interface user repository that extends data store repository. It is going to be saving the user object, and the ID for that is a long. So we just have to specify the entity and the primary key that it's using for this line here, and everything else magically happens because it is Spring data. So behind the scene, you should be able to save data. As you can see, the save data, we did not even create that method. So let's again go back to this AI controller here. So you see, there is no save user method in that. Of course, that's an interface. There is no save user method defined in that interface, but it still works like a charm, all because it is inheriting those required methods from the interface that it is extending. Again, let's go back to that specific user repository. You see here the data store repository that it's extending. So that provides all the necessary methods that we'll be using, like save, find, and so on and so forth. The standard CRUD methods that we would use to update the user, save the user, and retrieve the user, and so on. So all that will be implemented eventually behind the scene by Spring. So we really don't have to do anything if we are using Spring. So now our all the methods are looking good, but except how do we test it now? We really don't know how to test it at this point because it's a post. So I want it also to create an HTML form, and I'll ask it to create a user.html, which has the first name and last name text areas where I can, text boxes, where I can put in the user's first name and last name, and that should save the user into the data store. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to ask Gemini to create that for me. So create user.html file that accepts user's first name and last name. Submitting that form should invoke the endpoint that you just created. Yeah, that's good enough. So now it's going to create the form, and I really didn't tell where to put that user.html, but it will figure it out because we already have index.html put in that content folder, where in the static folder. So it should by default put that there. Let's see what it suggests, because I really didn't say anything, but it should figure it out. Okay, it's waiting for me. Hold on. What's it saying? Oh, I actually landed up creating everything. Looks like it. It's ready to go. So, okay, go ahead and put the change. Oh, I'm in the wrong screen here. Yeah. Go ahead and add that file. Of course, it really didn't have to compile because this is just a static file. Yeah, here it is. My user.html is ready. Hopefully with the 2 inputs, that should, once I fill in that input and submit the form, it should invoke the backend. Let's actually take a look at that. So here it is. Fetch AI user and method is post, and it is stringifying the user data, and it is passing to the backend. Now let's actually test it and see whether it really works and whether our user eventually gets stored in the data store. That's the next step. So I'm going to start my application. So as you know, the application you can start. Let me open my README with this command, right? So I'm going to start my application using that command. It did fail. It didn't quite get there, right? Exception encountered during the context initialization, canceling refresh attempt, bean creation exception, error creating bean with the name data store transaction manager defined in the class path, resource, so on and so forth. So now we have some exception. So now what I'm going to do, again, take the help of Gemini to fix this. So come back here, and I'm going to say when I run using Maven, I get this exception. Let's see what it's going to say for that exception. Right, it seems to be stuck somehow. So I'm just going to come out of it and once again restart my Gemini. Typically this doesn't happen. So when I run Maven, I get this exception. So again, it's a dependency issue. Many of the times when we get these kind of exceptions, it's always that we need to add some more dependencies in the POM. And so that's what it's figuring out as well. And it figured out. It's a version change that it is thinking should fix it. Let's accept that. And then it's again trying to run the Maven clean install. Clean install is fine. So let me just go ahead and ask it to finish that. So what it'll end up doing, you see here, so it ran this and it is piping that output to its own folder so that it can look into that and figure out what's going on. So that's what it is trying to do. And thereby it came up with more issues, it appears. Again, it's all connected with the dependency numbers, version numbers of the dependencies. So it's going and trying to search again to see how to resolve this issue. And there it comes with a different version for Spring Cloud GCP dependencies. It switched the dependencies, and I'm just going to go with that. And again, it's trying to run it. It is running and again trying to see if everything is looking good after it fixed that dependency. While it is doing that, let me also run here to see if it runs for me now. While it's also parallelly doing the same thing, I just want to make sure from my side too, if I still need Gemini to go about fixing it or if it is all fine. All right, so this time it is fixed. So I really don't need Gemini to do more because my Tomcat is now running and available at 8080. So let me go ahead and see that it is truly so. Yep, my app is running, up and running. So now we actually created a new file called user.html that will take the user's input. And here it is, my form is ready. So let me put my name and hit submit. And let's see what happens here. Doesn't look like it did anything, but we can see using the console and network. So it's saying the response is pending. Okay, here it is. It took a while. I should have waited for a bit, but instead I landed up hitting that submit button several times. As you can see, the output is coming here. Yeah, it has some exception while saving to the data store. What is happening? Path AI user, and we definitely have a data store exception unavailable. That's what it's saying. Malform JSON exception. So the JSON that is passed on by the HTML obviously is not the right format. So I'm going to simply give the exact same exception to my Gemini for it to go and figure out what needs to be fixed. So come back here. Of course, the exception is happening here too on my Java application. I see that here also. Yeah, I anyway grabbed it from the front end and I'm simply putting that exception here. I'm not even going to give more information. It is going to understand. The moment I show that exception, it is going to understand that an exception happened when I hit that submit button on that form. Okay, so it is saying that it is looks like we need to add in the application.properties this particular property, cloud GCP data store emulator enabled equals true. So let's see exactly what it's saying. So I'm facing a data store exception caused by malform JSON exception, likely due to an authentication issue with the Google Cloud. The stack trace points to compute engine credentials, suggesting a problem with fetching credentials from the metadata server. This could be due to running locally without proper emulator or authentication configuration. My plan is to check application properties for data store emulator and auth settings, review AI controller backend to understand the user saving logic, and then propose a solution likely involving configuring the data store emulator for local development. I'll start with application.properties. Now, what I'm not 100% sure with this is that will this fix, I'm going to accept it. But before accepting it, I want to also let the Gemini know that eventually I want to store the whatever the form input into the MBCC test data store that I created. So I'll check with it. I want to store the data in MBCC test project data store. Will this fix that you're suggesting? Help me get that. All right, so now it is giving me a different way of doing it. So the user wants to connect to the production data store. So my emulator suggestion was wrong. The error is an authentication failure because they are running locally, not on GCE. So to explain that they must authenticate their local environment, I'll instruct them to use gcloud auth application default login to set up the application default credential, which will allow their application to connect to the production data store. I'll provide this explanation now. So it is asking me whether it can run this gcloud auth application default login. Yes, I want to give this application, which is running on Google Cloud Shell, the authorization for it to use the production. So MBCC test project is considered as a production data store, not when it said emulator, so that would be an emulator which will be running on the local itself. I don't want that. So whatever I store, I want it directly go to the production. So I will let it run this so that I authenticate it so that it can save it into the production data store. Oh, you know what? This one, since I have this, do you want to confirm yes or no? That typically gets stuck. So probably I don't want it to be doing that. So instead, I will run this separately in a different window. So I'm going to copy this gcloud auth application default login. So I mean, it's not too bad. So I can this one is stuck now at this point because it is waiting for me to put y, and the y that I put here won't be accepted, unfortunately. That's a problem. So yes, that won't work. So I have to run this separately. So gcloud auth application default login, I'm going to run that here. I'll kill this app. Control C twice, kill that. So gcloud auth application default login. And here is that Y and S that we saw from Gemini. This is exactly what it is. So it's saying you're running on Google Cloud Compute Engine virtual machine. Service credential associated with this virtual machine will automatically be used by the application default credential, so it is not necessary to use this command. If you decide to proceed anyway, your user authenticate credentials may be visible to others with access to the virtual machine. Are you sure you want to authenticate with your personal account? With access to this virtual machine. Yeah, but nobody is accessing this virtual machine other than myself. So, although I must think about it a little bit. If I want to stop it, like eventually after running this test, I want to remove that, right? So I'm going to ask Gemini, how do I remove this after finishing it? So let me just go ahead and grab this and ask Gemini. I'm going to restart it because it is waiting for me to put that yes and no. And again, it's not really me because it is in a different loop that it goes into. So it's better that I just kill it and once again restart it. So here is what I'm going to ask. If I give permission with this prompt, how can I remove the permission after I'm done? So let's see what it's going to say. So I can do this gcloud auth application default revoke. So let me grab this and keep it with me so that once I'm done with it, I will revoke it. Okay, so that in case nobody else will come into this box, but just to be on the safer side, I will just revoke it once I'm done. So I go back here and run this again, and I'll say yes. So it's now saying go to the following link in your browser and complete the sign-in prompt. Once finished, enter the verification code provided in your browser. So I'm gonna click this link and I sign in to the G Cloud CLI using this page because you ran the following command. Now this is the copy one that I should copy from here and then paste it on this here. So now it's saying Quota Project MBCC test was added to ADC, which can be used by Google Client Libraries for billing and Quota. Now it is all set up. So now once I hit that form, it should be able to save to the data store. So let's see if that truly happens. So I'm going to run my application again. So my application started. Put AT. So I come back here. I refresh this page and I'm going to put my first name and last name and submit. This time it's giving me a different error though. Although it is still in 500 error only. The database default does not exist for Project MBCC test. Please visit this console and ensure that Cloud Data Store or Cloud Firestore is set up. Well, let's see. It should be there, right? So let's see. Oh, you know what? I didn't hit this create, it appears. Oh, could not create the database for some reason. That is the reason why it didn't work. Let's hit this once again. Not sure why it didn't create earlier. All right, now it is finally created. So data store is now ready. So let me go ahead and refresh this page once again and then retry entering my details. Okay, successfully created. Now let's go back to this data store, refresh this page here. And yes, my data is saved. So now that the data is saved, you can retrieve that and going through the exact same set of steps. You ask Gemini to create methods to retrieve the stored data based on certain queries, like you want to retrieve based on the user's first name, last name, whatever that you're trying to do, whatever queries that you're trying to run. Just ask Gemini to help you create those methods for you. And also the HTML files that are going to display those records, and it should be really as smooth as this. And again, what we'll end up doing right now is vibe coding. So using Gemini, we vibe coded, and this one is using Gemini 3.0, but 2.5 also is pretty good in getting you the similar kind of results. Yeah, this is the original exception that we had. Now if I once again run this, you will not see this exception, but this is the one that twice that it couldn't store. That is what you're seeing here, the old one. So that's about it. Thank you so much.